Her mission is simple: amplify the love of space, science, and exploration, and to encourage this generation that Mars is theirs.
Hi,
welcome
everybody.
back.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here this morning.
Yes. Now I am coming to Dr. Sian Proctor. And she is a geologist, STEAM speaker, and analog astronaut. She exchanged faculties to Australia, China, and Netherlands. She conducted research on Easter Island and Chile. Barrow was a polar track instructor in Alaska and an ambassador of astronomy educators in Chile and NOAA instructor at Sea Kodiak, Alaska. She lived in a Mars simulation on the Big Island of Hawaii and appeared on the Discovery Channel television show called Colony. And then she was at FEMA Institute for Emergency Management and was studying the disaster science curriculum. And welcome back, sir.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Yes.
And I would like to introduce Zainab Azim. And again, I'm very thankful to her that she came again, accepted our invitation, because we met her previously. Even Sian Proctor, dear Sian Proctor, we met them at the STEM podcast. Zainab Azim is a STEM advocate and the co-founder of GIVE, Global Initiative and Vision for Education. She's mentor at the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. Formerly, Zainab also addressed the inaugural Space Girls Space Women exhibition in Paris, France. Zainab is the youngest future astronaut in the world to fly with Virgin Galactic, inspired by the Roberta Bonder, Sally Ride, and audience. I'm sorry. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to take the lastly. Yeah. So our title of today is Women in Space and Science. But before coming up this topic, I would like to shortly introduce myself. I am Elif Keve. I'm graduated from architecture, but I'm willing to explore about space architecture. And then I am trying to actually continue my master program at International Space University for MSS program, Master Space Studies program, let's say. And I would like to have a question. We, as you know, that we are getting less opportunities here, and then we created this science team to create our own opportunities. And even that we got the limited opportunities, we see that women has more restriction to reach their goals, but we have to find some way to give them, open the ways to them. But I wonder a lot from each of you, what do you think? What should we do to make women to reach the science and space education easier to reach their dreams? I firstly want to give the field to Janet Ivey. Yeah, the field is yours.
Thank you. You know, one of the things, and I'm pretty sure that it's like, I know Dr. Proctor and Zainab, I hope will agree with me here. I think for one, it is time for women in space and science all over the globe to help each and every female that we come in contact with, and allow them and point them in the direction and give them some advice about the ways that we have gotten to be where we are. That is my commitment, that I think that that phrase about empowered women empower other women. And so I believe that it is very much my responsibility in my role, both at Janet's Planet and as president of Explore Mars, is that if I, Elif, can help you in any way, if I can find ways or introductions that would be meaningful for you to go forward in what you want to do, that is my responsibility. That is the gift of getting to where I have. I'll soon celebrate a birthday. I'll be 54 soon in November. And so for me, it's like the gift of being on this planet, having gotten to do a lot of what I love to do, to rub elbows with some of the finest women in the world. It is my responsibility to reach out and help in any way that I can. And so I feel like that's the first way that we do that. And then as we continually push those doors open and raise those and kind of like get rid of those ceilings that have been there for women, that is one way that we, again, just continually, and for every woman who gets to that path that they most love and are fulfilled and fulfilling that purpose of space and science and dreams of out there, it is equally your responsibility, as you are given those gifts along the way, to turn back around and continually seeding that pipeline behind you. I think that is the way that we create descendants along the way that carry this message forward, and their opportunities get ever more populous. And that way it's like, again, we have more females in science. But I think it starts with, if we've been given the gift of being here and doing a lot of what we love to do, I know for me, it's my responsibility to help every person I possibly can.
Thanks a lot for the answer. I would like to introduce Dana Pueyo. I am not sure I could pronounce your surname well, but first I should unmute you. Just a second. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Dana is a board member and regional development and training director of Women in Aerospace Europe. She is a multilingual person fluent in 4 languages. She worked at Thales European Space Agency and Airbus in 3 countries. Versatile manager with a solid engineering background, she has experienced more than a decade as final customer, science integrator, and manufacturer for institutional and private markets. Contributed to telecommunication, Earth observation, navigation, and science projects. Thanks a lot for accepting our invitation for this panel. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm keen to contribute.
If you have heard about the question, we would like to ask the same question to you, but if not, I would like to ask again.
Yes, please, can you repeat, because I only heard part of it.
Okay. Initially, I wanted to say a little bit about our team. We created this team because we had less opportunities here. We created a science team with a master and bachelor students, and in that way we also came across the worst problem, that the women cannot reach to their dreams. Everything became like a strict block in front of their ways. So I wanted to ask each of our panelists here, what are the ways to open their roads, to make it wider? What should we do? What kind of interaction or projects we do? What do you advise for this thing?
Well, that's an interesting point that I think everybody faces, not only women, at a certain moment in life, that you have the impression that maybe things are more difficult than they should be. So for me, the first step to do is to be sure of your capacities. Very often we are putting limits ourselves. I've heard so many times people who don't dare to do things because, well, because somebody else told them so. So don't believe, never believe people who are telling you you cannot do something because you are a woman, because you are from a certain religion, because you don't have the right studies, whatever they are telling you, because they are speaking from their own fears, not your fears. And that's something very important to always have in mind. So you can do many, many more things than what other people might think. So you need to trust in yourself. That would be for me the first thing to make clear to everyone. A second point, well, I loved what the previous speaker just said, that we all need to help each other. I think it's very important. We know how difficult it can be sometimes, so it's very important to support and to help to the extent we are able to support. It's not always possible, but okay, we all have busy agendas, and it's not we are not always available, but we are trying, and I think that's very important to support each other. Another thing which I think is key is to be visible. Very often women, we tend to think that it's just enough with doing a good job. It is not. It is not for women, it is not for men, it is not for anybody. So if people don't see what you are doing, it's impossible that they can contact you. So that's why it's very important that you make yourself visible in conferences like this one, for example. I think it's a very good opportunity. And another point where we work a lot, it's also on networking. So women, we tend to think that networking, it's something not important, and it's something basic, and it's linked to the visibility we were speaking before. So to find opportunities and to meet the right people, and that the right people know you, you need to network. And sometimes women, we think it's a little bit too instrumental, that we think, oh, I shouldn't call this person just for asking for something, for anything, for some help, for example. And well, that's the purpose of networks. So we really should use them in this way. There would be many other topics, but I think those ones for me are the most, yeah, the key ones.
Dear Sian Proctor, would you like to answer the same question?
Yes, thank you. What Janet was saying and our previous speaker, it really resonates with me, and building how we build community is what I'll add, is that groups and women's groups and connecting. And so thinking about how we take that networking and we take it one more step further, and we make connections with people that are deep and meaningful. And we do that through groups and activities that we can do together, whether it's virtual or whether it is in person. For example, getting together with an all-female panel, or another example is I spent the first 2 weeks of January before the pandemic in the Sensoria mission, which was an all-female analog astronaut mission. And so the first time at high seas. And what's great about that is that we bonded, created a network, and now not only do we get together and still we're building on that network, and more people. I was just on a call the other day with 3 other females who are going to high seas this year, and thinking about how we continue to build this kind of deep connection with each other around the world. And then that gives us opportunities. We find out about each other, we support each other, and we get away from this idea of compete, and instead we talk about completing each other, or working and together for a common future. Because in the past, there would be only one spot for a female, and we felt like we were always in competition with each other. And the system was set up that way for us to compete. And really, if we want to have the future in space and exploration that we want, we've got to get away from that competition mode and really think about how we're stronger together, and supporting each other and cheering each other on with our successes, instead of being put into that other mindset. And so I think that that's really important too, of helping each other be the best that we can be.
Thanks a lot again. And Zainab, what do you think about this?
Wow. Everything that all the previous speakers said is absolutely right. And, you know, the mentorship element is crucial in this. And that's why I joined the Space for Women network mentorship program with UNOSA to uplift younger women, older women, anyone who's trying to navigate their way through STEM from my own experiences, but also I'm able to, you know, connect them with other people who I think will be able to help them better if I can't. And so that mentorship is really important. Now, my specialties are more in education. And so I recognize the power that education has and that the schooling system has in forming our cultures and forming our beliefs about what we can and cannot do. And there was this really interesting study that was done where there was a group of girls and they were given this math assignment, and it was just girls in the room. And then they had another group of students where it was girls and boys in the room, and they were doing the same assignment. And what they found was really interesting. The first group of students that was just girls scored much higher than the girls in the second group where there were boys and girls, where the boys scored higher. And that really reveals the implicit bias that we as women can also have that is perpetuated by society and that we just believe ourselves about STEM being for men and dominantly for white men. And then there was another study in how teachers affect this. When teachers were given papers to grade, math papers to grade that had no names on them, they found that the girls scored higher than the boys, but then when they had names on it, the boys scored higher than the girls, and they were the same papers, just different teachers. So this was really interesting in that the education system that we have, which is kind of the formative years of students and their minds are developing and their ideas are developing about society and about themselves, is they're forming these ideas in their head of this is for me and this is not for me. I have a place here and I don't have a place here. And so I think education reform in the curriculum to show more diversity of women, women from different cultures, from different faiths, different races in that curriculum, not just for girls to see themselves represented so that they can believe they can do it, but also for boys, because boys are going to go on and be part of this industry as well and create these cultures. And if they have this idea in their mind that this is not for women, then that's the cycle is going to keep on going on. And so I think reforming education so that there is more diversity, which is really, really important. And then also, you know, doing implicit bias training, and then attaching that along with mentorship, which is something that everybody touched on, is we as women, when we have access to these fields or resources, is that we're sharing that and we're empowering more women so that they can go on and empower more women.
Okay. I would like to give a field to our friend Sena.
Hello again. I'd like to ask you, what do you see how do you see the world in the history, from history and now? Like, how is the process of women in science and space? How is it going and how will it go? And I see that all of us are working on mostly women, firstly women and then the others. And I'd like to know what you're doing and what do you think about it? And Janet, we can start with you.
All right. A couple of things to build on Zainab's kind of comment about the good gentleman. I will say this, for any good gentleman out there listening, I think the best kind of gentlemen are the ones that recognize their very smart colleagues that are female. And so you have a role in this as well, to, when you can, and, you know, recognize the breadth of the knowledge bank that happen to be your female colleagues is also part of this equation. You know, one of the things I think, to your question about where do I see it, it's come a long way. It's like, guys, 10 or 15, 20 years ago, it's like every conference that I would go to would generally be all males. You would very rarely, it would be rare to see a female that might be the space architect or the propulsion person. And so what I've even seen in the last, especially I guess 15 years that I've been going to space conferences and seeing people, is that we are beginning to see these arenas open up. I think maybe the most kind of like challenging thing that I see is that there is like, part of me wants to scream and go, why is this even still a question? It should be like, do you have what it takes? I mean, Dr. Proctor, it's like, if you read her CV, she has done so many amazing things. To me, there should be no question. Whatever door she knocks on should open up, right? That is the world that I want to see. That when you've done the work, when you are a proven asset, and that there is no question. I won't name this dear friend of mine's name. She's in the same age range that I am, in her 50s, immensely qualified, and recently had an interview with Google. And when I tell you, like, immensely qualified, like, her CV is so incredibly long. She's an expert in human factors and research and about all these kinds of things. So in the interview, they didn't ask one question of her. They didn't just look at her as female, they also looked at her age. And so the only thing the interviewer, who was a bit younger than she was to say, wow, you've done a lot. To which my friend is like, yeah. And she says, she goes, they never asked me a real question. She goes, I was incredibly suited for that position, could have brought a lot to the table. So I do believe that in the next 30, 50 years, we're going to see females. I mean, again, we're beginning to see that emerge. I think what disheartens me is that why must it take another several decades for this to be true? And the other thing that I would add for us to think about is that don't throw away the wealth of knowledge that might be in someone in her middle or late 50s or 60s. There is a knowledge bank there. And they are the pioneers that kind of like opened the doors. I've got dear friends in their 60s and 70s that opened the door for women, whether that was in television production or science or technology and stuff. And so we should hold them up as a pedestal. We should be calling them saying, can you please be my mentor? And so I think a couple of things. I think it's going to change. There's an inevitability. It's like it must, because good people like us are pushing those doors open. But I also think that we cannot throw away that knowledge bank of older women as well, just because they're older. They have paved the way. There's some knowledge they can give to us. So honoring them as we also make way for this younger pipeline. I pray that it is the inevitability, the eventuality that happens, that again, this becomes sort of a conversation that's like, of course it's being led by an all-female team. Of course it's being led by a female. But I think it's going to take the work of all of us respecting each other across genders, across kind of like ages for that to happen.
Thank you very much, Janet. I agree with you. And what will Zainab will say about this? Because I know that she's struggling too with this kind of issues, and she has a lot of things to say. Yes, Zainab.
Janet's response was right on. I'll first kind of touch on my experience. Well, as a younger woman in this generation, I have a lot of role models to look up to now. And I know that wasn't the case, especially in my mother's generation and my grandmother's generation. So I'm really grateful for that. I have people like Janet to look up to, or Sian to look up to, and all the speakers here to look up to. So that's one of the things I think that we have progressed, obviously, but Janet's right on that point of we still have a lot of progress to be made. And it's kind of sad that we aren't going as fast as we should be. And it's a really simple concept, right? It's just like looking at women the same, like not letting their gender be a factor and whether or not they get a job or whether or not they're qualified, because that has nothing to do with it. It is about ability. And it reminded me of this story that I was reading the other day. There was this Black woman in America who was applying to this job at a company. I forget the name of the company. And the first 2 times she applied, she wrote she was a woman, she was Black, and she got rejected. The 3rd time she applied, she said, let me try something, because her name was Hannah. And so, you know, they could mistake her for being white. She didn't check off the box that said, you know, Black, and she got accepted. So there's intersectionality here, and that is something that's extremely, that's not just her story. That's probably happened many, many, many times over and over and over again. And so, you know, intersectionality of older women, but then also of women of color, Black women, of maybe of even income. And so we have to think about intersectionality when we're talking about this in terms of progress, because progress maybe for someone who's white and younger or middle-aged, you know, a woman for that, maybe there's a lot of progress. But then for someone who is a person of color, lower income, or so on and so forth, has different barriers or different challenges. And so I think we have a lot of progress to be made in those areas. And then finally, I think I remember Sian mentioning this idea of competition versus collaboration, right? And that also connects to Janet's story of, you know, women shouldn't be, you know, even in some movements, even in some feminist movements, sometimes we see, you know, younger people or younger women, you know, saying thank you to the older women for doing this, but then like step aside now. And it's like, let's work together, because there's so much experience that older people have, and then so much potential that younger people have and younger women have, that we should be working together. And so I think to move forward, it's absolutely right, mentorship and just more collaboration and less competition. And I think that has a lot to do with the way that we're taught in schools and our education systems, that again, the system is designed for us to compete against each other. And I think that needs to change as well.
Okay, we would like to ask the same question to Sian Proctor.
Well, you both have hit on things that resonate with me. And being a Black female in America, let's just say the history has not been good. And with just, you know, Janet will say, yeah, look at my resume, but that's not what people see. The first thing that people see when I walk into the door is the color of my skin. And that has been nothing but a barrier my entire life. And so thinking about what the future, how do we make that better, where we take away those kinds of barriers, where people get celebrated for diversity, and in all of the ranges, from age to race to educational background to what school you attended. There are so many things where we have this bias towards people. And I mean, a good example of that is just our school system. And if you could have afford to go to you know, an Ivy League school or something like that versus a state school or a community college, and how somehow you're labeled as not being smart enough or dedicated enough. You know, being a community college professor, a lot of times people, you know, I don't get invited to speak at a lot of the university level conferences and things like that, because I don't have the title of MIT behind my name, or Stanford or Caltech, even though my resume may be amazing. And so there's a lot of things that barriers for women because of, and women of color, because a lot of people of color tend to go to the state schools and the community colleges and all of those things. And that to an extent puts you at one step back again, in being forced to not only prove yourself, but prove yourself at a level of 110%. The pressure of not messing up, because if you mess up once, then that's it, because they already expect you to fail. They already expect you to fail the moment you walk into the door, and then they say, well, let's give her a chance. You know, like, really, like, give her a chance, and let's see if she can prove herself. And that's what, regardless of you know, color or age, that's the label that we get a lot of times, is that we as women have to prove ourselves in ways that our white male counterparts don't have to. And so we're in a system that has been set up by white males for white males to thrive in. And that's the reality. That is the system. And so how do we dismantle and change that system. And it's getting better. There's no doubt about that, but we still have a long, long, long way to go. And it'll be interesting to see how, because more women are graduating than men from universities, and particularly in the United States. And that's a trend that's happening. I'd like to see more women empowered worldwide. And so how do we get that level of education, especially in some of the countries around the world where women aren't given those opportunities? They are doing domestic chores and stuff like that, that take them away from education and empowerment, because that is, to me, it made a big difference in my life as an African American, and my parents saw that education was going to help open the doors, because even though they saw my skin color, that resume that came along with it would open doors. And so I think that we really need to work collaboratively on a global scale to just educate as many women as quickly as possible, along with our male counterparts, that we're here and we're not going anywhere.
Well, thank you very much. And what Deanna thinks about it?
Well, I think we still have a lot of work to do to make this happen. So it's not happening by itself. When I speak with many people, they tell me, well, things are much better than before. They are a little better, but taking into account how many women we have now being in studying STEMs, how many women are in the workforce, it should be much, much better than it is. So that means we really need to do a lot of work still at all levels, and men are playing a key role in this work to be done, because they are still taking the decisions most of the time. So that's why they need to be on the boat, in the boat as well. And I think they are very motivated. I had many opportunities myself being given by men who give me the opportunity to take over responsibilities and to believe in myself, even if I had not done this task before. So that's something that usually men don't do for women, but we have some men doing that. And I think they have a big motivation. It's because we have huge challenges now as humankind, and we have a talent scarcity. So this is happening everywhere in the world. So every time I speak with different countries in Women in Aerospace, we have this opportunity to compare different countries, and we always see there is this scarcity of talent problem. And that's why it's so important that you just don't, that countries and companies and organizations don't stop themselves just with the pool of white men, but they open the pool to everybody, to women, to older, to younger, to black, white, religion, whatever. So they really need to open it to everyone. And that's people need to be very conscious, because I know in UK, for example, or in Germany, they know they have an issue to maintain the economy as it is right now, or to improve it as they want it, because they will not have the minds behind to do so. So they really need to motivate young girls and women to enter into the workforce, to enter into STEM studies, so that they have enough people doing the work afterwards. So that this is helping us. And something which I know, which we've been discussing before, which is really essential, is all these unconscious bias topic. Because unconscious bias, it's very helpful, in fact. It is a tool we've been having for years, and it has evolved to help us understand the world and take the decisions, and not be forced to do an analysis each time. The issue of unconscious bias, it's when it is forcing you to take the wrong decision. And this is something I repeat to the people, and that's why it's so important to do these trainings on unconscious bias, so that when somebody is hiring somebody else, they are aware of their own unconscious bias, and then they know that they will take the right decision, not because the unconscious bias is telling them just take somebody like me, like the person doing the interview, but take really the person I need to do this job. And that's a message we really need to push and to explain well, because sometimes we do the mistake of saying, oh, it's all unconscious bias is very bad, it's always bad. No, it's not true. It's only bad when it's not helping you to take the right decision. That's my point of view on this.
Thanks a lot for your everyone's answer. Really, we are very happy to see these hopeful, energetic women around us. And I wonder this thing: do you believe women evolution? Because in the previous history until now, we see that all the time the man is dominant everywhere, not only, let's say, space and science, but also, let's see, I'm graduate from architecture. I see that all the working area, constructions area, architect man is more than women. When we check the other occupations works, we see, let's say, piloting, in the pilot, we see man is more than women. All the time we see a domination, like man is dominant in all the places. Do you think in the past history, let's say in the Stone Age, the women were like this, or in the time it was changed? Is there like a women evolution or not? Really, I'm wondering this thing. I want to start with Jenny, Ivey.
I think it depends on what culture or civilization you look at. You know, throughout history, there have been some very matriarchal, kinds of societies where the female was the eminent kind of person there. I nearly think that this construct has happened in the last, maybe 400 or 500 years. But it's like, to me, it's like you have, especially if you look at some of the Native American tribes or indigenous peoples, there are some beautiful matriarchal societies where women were held as these goddesses and, these vestiges of knowledge and wisdom. I think that, again, I love what she has said about that unconscious bias. I think becoming aware of that, confronting any of those places, it's like, I have every belief that even in the time of the caveman could have gone out hunting and everything, but it's like, I'm pretty sure there was some strong woman somewhere going, this is what you bring me? It's like, I just hope that there was a bit of sass and vim and vigor at some point, and somebody was like, oh, she can be strong. And I think telling the story of the women who have gone before us are so very important. I love the story of Mary Anning, who was a fossil hunter in the early 18th century, who, against everything, it was because of her station. She wasn't of noble means, so she was able to go out every day and look for fossils and sell those curiosities in her store. Or we look at women who were adored by their husbands, and they held up their science alongside, their male counterparts and stuff. So I think that it is probably, in some cultures and societies, it's like, our strength is palatable, ladies. We are strong. We are able, some of us, to bear babies and juggle a kid here, work here on our computer, ring up and make sure that dinner is ready and things like that. So we are strong and capable. And, I know that multitasking doesn't really exist. We always sacrifice a bit, but I will tell you that every woman I have ever known is a super tasker, not just a multitasker, but knows how to juggle home and family and parents and caregiving. And we use all of those things. I think sometimes what we have to watch out for, and I hope you guys don't mind me saying this, is that I love being female. I don't want to be a guy. I love the fact that I am strong and think and have different faculties and things that are innately female. I love my nurturing. There is a part of me, I was never able to have children of my own. So people always ask me, Janet, how do you work with all of these kids? And I'm like, because I want to be like the mom taking the kiddos in my arms, right? So that is how I nurture the world. So I think there have been along the way some beautiful civilizations we could go back and look at and go, we need to adopt some of those principles of that indigenous tribe. But I also think that it is so very important to honor just the femaleness of us, the nurturing part of us, the things that are essentially who we are, and let those reside alongside, that we don't have to sacrifice some of those things that are innately female to also be part of this STEM and science field. I find all the time that I really do believe those doors are widening. I agree with you, it's not happening at all soon enough, but I think it's sort of that thing of like, I think we are all here for such a time as this, that we are all gathering together. For anybody out there who's listening now or will listen later at a later date, if you want to do science and technology, engineering, art, math, and add to whether that is some science career or space exploration, it's like you decide right now, much to your first thought about trust thyself. If you know in your heart that in the Venn diagram of where your happiness and your deep gladness reside, you go forward with that with all your might and heart, and you keep knocking on every female door that you can find until somebody says yes. And then you go in that direction of your dream. And that again is how we continue to move this forward. But I think that it is a construct of probably like, oh, those females are powerful. We just need to keep the lid on them. And so I think it's a construct that's happened over time. And I think now is the best time for we to go, my power can sit alongside your power, and we can be even more powerful together. That's my hope. But I do think some earlier civilizations point the way, that there were some very strong women along the way.
Okay. I'm sorry. I want to ask the same question to Sian Proctor, please.
Yeah, you know, I agree with Janet that there have been historically some really strong women, but the thing about that is that those stories have typically been few and far between, and they've been mainly Eurocentric to some extent. You know, just last night I went on the TV and I was flipping through channels and looking for something to watch on, I think it was Netflix. And just interesting storylines and stuff. And it literally was, you know, a white storyline, white storyline, white storyline, white characters, white storyline. You know, whether we're looking at historical things or, you know, present, you know, family units, all of those things. And I was just like, well, boy, how are we going to empower, you know, multiculturalism and diversity if we don't have these stories out there? And when I think about the past and you think, okay, well, let's name 5 powerful Black females in history, and you think, whoa, okay, well, you know, people might come up with Cleopatra and thinking about that. But those stories, a lot of them are lost because they just weren't recorded. It's not that there weren't strong women in Africa doing things. It's just that those stories haven't been celebrated and they haven't been recorded. And so now we're in a situation where, okay, well, what's the future of people of color and women of color, and how do we create narratives that are strong and supportive? And that's why, you know, Wakanda, you know, thinking about Black Panther and why that was such a pivotal moment for Black people around the world to kind of celebrate a story, even if it's fictional, that puts people of color, women of color in the forefront, in strong role model storylines. And I think it's really important that we share our stories and get them out there so that we can have more narratives that are being spread, so that it's not dominated the successes of just a few people, but really reaching out and looking for not just the people who are at the top, but what about those people who are middle or down below and trying to come up? How do we elevate all of these stories so that we have diversity in our fabric of women in STEM? And I just think that by helping to, you know, empower each other. Thank you for bringing me to this conversation and being able to share my experience, and just really thinking about stories and how we each have a unique path that's worth celebrating.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot again. And I would like to ask for the next Zainab. Zainab, do you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Well, many topics have been put on the table. I love this one about the narratives that you just brought, because in fact, history and what we know about other societies is based on what has been written and told. It's not only based on what has happened. And if nobody speaks about what has happened, then we don't know about these stories where women might have been having a more prominent role. There is also another fact that we well know, is that in the past, very often women said that they were men or didn't say what they were when they were having some important roles. So we might have been missing also in a lot of stories where women were playing a key role. And regarding the evolution, so you were talking if women were in key roles in society, I think that they have always been, but it really depends on what each society has valued and has decided to underline as powerful. So what is understood as power, what is understood as valuable in a society. And this is very important, I think, for self-reflection in our societies. So what are we valuing? What is important for us? Is it only important to be an architect? Or is it also important to be a mother? Is it as well important to be a teacher who is just training and nurturing all the future human beings or the people from a nation? So I think that's something it's a point very important to think about at political level as well. Huh? What are the values of our societies? And after, I think there is also a point regarding adaptation. So I think different cultures probably and societies have adapted to their environment in different ways. So it is well known, for example, that women have taken very many more important roles in society from the today's point of view, let's say, after the first World War, because there were far less men available because they had died during the war, and then the positions were available, and then women had to fill them, and then many women were able to develop and to show how good they were because they were given the opportunity. So that's why I think there is always also this point regarding adaptability, so that each society adapts to its environment and the situation. And now we have the opportunity to help and to push a little bit for this adaptation. And as we have this scarcity of talent now, to help and to push that more women are visible. And also, as you were saying before, that we talk about these women. So it's important, we have, each of us have a role there of giving visibility to colleagues or to people who are doing a good work, to push when we have panels, for example, about any topic that we push, and we recommend also women, not only men, and there we have all a role to play.
Thanks a lot again, Diana. I would like to introduce Thi Hien Nguyen, I think. It's a very difficult surname, I think. And as you know, that there is a Space for Women show, and she was there. That's why she came now. But it's okay for us. We still wanted to invite her and see her with us. So Thi Hien is a German-based futuristic, philanthropic, and social entrepreneur. She is the founder and executive and director at Space Connects. Hien's massive transformative purpose is to uplift the people, planet, and beyond with space and sustainability solutions. Welcome, dear Thi Hien.
Thank you for having me, and apologies for the delay. Yeah, I was just getting off the show and actually had tech problems. Yeah, would you ask me some questions, or do you want me to share my personal story, the Space for Women initiative? I see so many friends in here. Well, you just ask me and I'll share my story, or you go ahead. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Now the audio is back.
Yeah. We were talking about the actually from the past history until now, what was changed about the women. When we check all the places, we see that man is dominated, all the jobs and occupations. We see that for the architects, we see that man is more than women. We see pilots, man is more than women. And also, as you know, that until this year 2020, there is no astronaut who went to moon, but they plan for 2024. And even you see, until now, there is something. And we wonder that what was the reason behind of this, and we ask to our panelists. We want to listen to you as well. What do you think?
I think it's cultural, and most of this gender inequality is a social setting. It's just that's something we are perhaps could not choose. We're born into, you know. Usually inherit at birth already the belief systems of our father and our mother, you know, and their values, how we should dress and how we should talk and all of this. But this is all changing now, of course, right? I hope that I didn't, until I started working with the UN, I never use words such as equality and all of these movements. I think being a woman, in fact, is actually an advantage, you know. I witness actually working with a lot of serial male alpha entrepreneurs. They also actually now say, you know, the future belongs to the women and actually to the children, you know. Those should be the politicians. Those should be the ones leading. For example, we witnessed that all countries led by female politicians, they all controlled the COVID, right? So I don't view the world as, you know, as an inequality. We are all one. I think eventually, hopefully, when we all acknowledge that we are one human family, no matter what gender and what belief system or religion or upbringing you had, it's what's coming is very new for all of us, for our children, and I hope, I think we have a lot of support going onwards for the future. There's so many initiatives with equality for women, and for my personal journey, I cannot say that I encountered inequality. I truly believe that if you have the right mentor or the right person that can help you to overcome your own personal stories, you can make anything happen. That is not really, shouldn't be an obstacle for any developing women. If they have access to Wi-Fi, they should have access to education, technology, and everything. And I'm literally witnessing it right now, as our Space for Women initiative. Its purpose is truly to reach developing countries, women and girls. The audio can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Zainab, do you hear us? So I want to ask Zainab's question.
Well, again, the points that all the speakers touched on, and Hien, nice to see you here, all very correct. I think that it depends on the culture and the society that you're looking at. I think everything that I learned in my history, when I took a world history course in high school, it said world history and it was just Europe and America. So that was interesting. And there you see that it's like Sian said, it's very Eurocentric, and you learn that throughout history, man is dominant. That's what you learn. When you study history, man is dominant, that you see them in the roles, Alexander the Great. So, you know, maybe you'll learn about Cleopatra, but that's the only woman that I learned about. Even in my science classes, I didn't learn about Marie Curie, and I went to an only girls school. I didn't go to a co-ed school. I went to an only girls school, and I didn't learn about her. And so I think that we need to change our perspective as well, because I was researching, and you know, when you look at some African societies like Papua New Guinea or Kenya, they have matriarchal societies, or they had it throughout history, right? And we see that when colonization happens, even when you see in India, when colonization happened, that's when patriarchy really was introduced, right? So different societies, different countries, different cultures have a different history in terms of women's roles and the evolution of women's roles. And I think that we need to tell, like everyone's saying, we need to tell that story. And while it may not be there in the written record, which is a big part of how we teach and what we learn, there are oral stories. Many societies and many cultures, they have oral stories instead of written word stories. And I think that we need to get different sources, and we need to find oral stories. We need to, you know, listen to people who have these oral stories and begin teaching them in schools, so that, again, we can change our perspective of, you know, who had patriarchy, who introduced patriarchy, how, you know, where it came from, where these social constructs came from, and how learn from those societies who had matriarchy or who have it, to introduce those qualities and values into our societies. Because this whole dominance of, you know, I was watching an interview the other day of, it was, and again, I don't know why I'm obsessed with like American politics, but there was a conservative and he was interviewing this Indian American woman, and he was saying, you know, well, I think that Western culture is the best because look at how much progress we've made. We've given women all these rights. You know, in Saudi Arabia, you can't drive a car and you can't do this and you can't do that. And in that moment, I thought, but you guys are the ones who created patriarchy. You know, the social constructs came from you. Wherever you colonized, that's where we see those values and those practices being introduced. You know, whereas we see in what they call developing countries, who I think are much more far advanced in terms of culture, that they have gender equality or it's a matriarchy. So I think that it's the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories that we teach to young kids and the perceptions that they build, which is why I think education is really important, and we need to make it more diverse and get these oral stories, even if they're not in the written record.
Thank you very much, Zainab. And I'd like to hear from you, like some success stories of yours, because we have a lot of women listeners, and I think that they are losing their hopes about future, because we are living in a Turkey, as you know, like our science is not so developed. We're trying to make it more wise, but we are still on the road. So I think they want to hear some success stories from you to be more hopeful about future and women in science and space. And I'd like to start with Sian Proctor. Yes, please.
The thing about it is that we have choices every day, and we're so lucky in that sense. Not everybody has choice or as much choice, but I feel very fortunate that in the United States, the choices that my parents made, particularly about education, has set me up to have an abundance of choices. And then the choices I made about my education has opened the doors for me to have a lot of options. And the thing that I believe is the evening, the evening out the field is access to information, especially open educational resources. So I this year became the open educational resource coordinator for my district. And open educational resources means that it's material in the education field that has been tagged with a Creative Commons licensing. That means you're able to reuse, remix, redistribute, retain all of these amazing things that allow us to get knowledge out into the world through digital means, so that anyone, anywhere around the world could have access to knowledge if they are connected. And connectivity is another whole issue, but it's this whole idea of how do we distribute our information and our knowledge. And one of the things that we can do as women is that we can empower others through Creative Commons and open educational resources, and making sure that we tag our stuff as open and our stories as having a Creative Commons license, so that they can be openly shared and distributed, and empowering to others around the world. And so how do we make sure that we promote open access? And so when we talk about stories, success stories, I feel very fortunate that I'm a success thanks to those things that the groundwork that my parents laid for me, but then also the choices that I've made to go and be a lifelong learner and explorer. And if we can, encourage women around the world to be explorers in their whatever system they have, and that idea that you're an explorer if you're getting new knowledge to yourself. You don't have to be discovering something new for humanity. If you're just discovering something new for yourself on a daily basis, then you're an explorer, and you can be an explorer of your world. And as you gain your knowledge and your experience through that exploration, more opportunities are going to open up for you. So don't give up hope, because the narrative that you're starting to write now for yourself is amazing, and the world is getting better. And so there is opportunity that's going to open up, and access is going to open up, because all of the women here that are on this panel are kicking down doors, and we are making and trailblazing that way. And so, but we need you to not give up hope, and we need you to become lifelong learners and explorers, and really making those steps toward the person that you want to be.
Thank you very much. And I agree with all of you say, and I think the knowledge has no limits. So being born as a female cannot be the limit of learning something new or develop ourselves in every field we want. So I agree with you, and I am leaving the word for the Janet Ivey, please.
Well, again, so well said, Dr. Proctor. I tell you, here's the thing, guys. I am a first generation college graduate for both sides of my family. My mom's, no one on my mom's side of the family, not my mother, had ever gone to college. No one on my dad's side had ever gone to college. And so, you know, again, I grew up in rural Tennessee, a little place in Southeast United States. But along the way, I was a curious mind. It's like, I was sitting here thinking, I remember reading a book. I wish I could recall the title, but in it, the little girl protagonist had a passport. And she was traveling around the world. And I remember a time she was on this big, ocean liner, and she docked, and there she explored Istanbul. And to think that the little girl in me this morning is just getting delighted that I have just made friends with people in Turkey, and I'm speaking to you all. That is something for me that is a success, that if you had seen did not grow up wealthy or at all, was very loved, was encouraged. I think sometimes my parents were like, I don't know, I don't get it, but go and fly, little one. And so grateful for parents who might not have understood always what I wanted to do, but were supportive nevertheless. That was humongous. But I will tell you, along the way, whatever I set my mind to, whether that was television production, and sometimes I was the only female, but I decided, again, it's like I would learn it, and then I would open doorways for others to be part of that. Again, it's same thing for being, if someone would have told me even 10 or 12 years ago, Janet, you will one day be the president of, a global, space advocacy group, I would have been like, you got a funny sense of humor. But here I am. And a lot of that happened, guys, is because I just kept showing up. The reason that I even got introduced to Buzz Aldrin is that I went to a space conference and was like, hi, I like to do education. Here's what I'm doing. And then I get invited by Space Florida to produce a half-hour documentary on microgravity. Again, because I just was persistent. So some of your actions, it's like you need to be indefatigable, absolutely relentless and persistent in what you want to do. And I would often go, and it was like, I would not ask for anything. I would just go, how may I help? How may I be of service to you? And of course, it's like, I'm sure that was a very bold and a little bit even naive statement, because what can I do? I'm this little person in, Tennessee, doing some education stuff. And so by the very nature of me going, how may I serve you? They're like, okay. So very shortly, people like National Space Society and Explore Mars said, yeah, we're not really doing education outreach. How about you do it? So I will just tell you, chart your course, show up, say, how can I be of service? How could I help your organization? And maybe, as outlandish as that may sound, whatever you're good at doing is possibly what somebody else needs. And again, guys, at this point in my career, I've won 12 regional Emmys. I've won a STEM Florida award. I have been, I'm president of Explore Mars, which again goes, I own my own company. So dare to chart your course and say, you know what, I'm going to show up. And again, not everybody's going to say yes, but do not let that deter you. That just means when they say no, that just means they are not where you are supposed to be. Doesn't mean they're bad, doesn't mean anything like that. It just means there is another divine appointment on your path, and it is up to you to find that.
Thank you very much, Janet. So I have a similar background like yours, not in America, but in Turkey. I was born in southeast of Turkey, and there was a lot of less opportunities to develop ourselves and knowledge about science. So I really agree with you. And I think the only reason of failing ideas is the giving up. If we give up, we will fail. That's the reason that the ideas are flying away. So thank you very much. And what Diana thinks about this question? I want to hear about.
Well, first I want to say that I love the question because I'm full of energy now with the positive talks from my previous colleagues. I feel myself as well being able of doing anything now.
Yes, we can do everything.
But it is so true. It is so true that don't give up. And for me, it has been a basis for the success. I'm leaving. It's don't give up. If something is not working, try something different. And you really need to be open and creative on what it means to evolve. So, sometimes something is not working, so you need to think, okay, how can I find something else? And there it's very important, the topic of the support. So you were speaking before, I got the support of my parents. Okay, sometimes we don't have this luck, sometimes it's not your parents, sometimes it's an uncle, sometimes it's an aunt, sometimes it's a mentor, sometimes is a friend or a colleague. So you need really this support. You need to find collaboration. If you don't have any support now, maybe you can look for associations like ours or any other international organization where you can find other people like-minded that can help you and support you. But this is really important because we all face sometimes where we stop believing in ourselves and we need somebody else to believe for us. And that's why this support network is so important, or to have somebody as a reference. After, I think it's very important also to move and to get experiences. So moving, it doesn't mean to go to another country, which for me I did, and that was helpful in this sense. But really to be open to new opportunities and new things. So sometimes we think, okay, I want to stay in my city doing this job with these friends, with these colleagues, with this, and this is wrong because it closes opportunities, and because the world is changing so fast now that then the things are going to change around you and you are going to miss it because you are not open to this change. So I think it's very important also to be open to this. Okay, things might not go the way I had planned them, but I need to still look for a way. And I really believe for myself that there is a serendipity. So each time I have felt the need that I needed a change, I've been working on it, and then I was able to catch the opportunities. So it means for you, it's very important always, okay, think on what you want, do the work, get the visibility, and then insisting, as you were just saying before, so somebody's going to say, but afterwards, you are going to have another opportunity. But this is only working if you do your homework. So if you are sitting at your home, waiting that suddenly somebody comes and offer you a job, this is not going to happen. This is going to happen only if you have visibility, if people know what you are doing, then maybe somebody's going to come and speak to you. Or if you go to a conference, as you were saying, and you are selling yourself. This is very important, something that women, sometimes we feel a little uncomfortable, but if you are speaking what you can and what you can bring to fill a need, then the opportunities might be coming. So you really cannot allow yourself to be static and to wait the things to happen. You are the one who can drive your life. But for that you need to be ready to be driving the car. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy, but it's really worth it. So I really encourage you. Sometimes you will be having hard moments, but look for some support that can push you a little more, that you can still go in the direction. And
landscape is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Diana. And what do you think about this question, Thi Hien Nguyen?
Yeah, can you repeat the question again, please?
Like, we would like to hear some success stories about yours, because we have a lot of people that they're falling down and they don't want to go forward again because it's so hard. They want to come back about their fields, about their dreams. So if you have some success stories to tell us, we'll be very happy to hear.
I'd rather share with you the trial and errors. You know, I think success stories, success is not about success. Success is how many times you're willing to take the thing no one talks about, the work behind the scenes, you know. That there is no failure out there, as I mentioned previous. Partially, most of us women, we have inherited already, even before conception, the belief systems of the mother. If your mother was very fearful in pregnancy, you know, if she herself was in an abusive relationship, and all of this, you know, unconscious imprints that we inherit. So in times like this, I think that really to understand that nothing, you're not broken, nothing is wrong with you. When you are here, you have an opportunity. I think the thing that you say to yourself consciously or subconsciously, and I'm not sure if some of you invest time at some point, I think it's a good time to just turn everything off, go offline, shut the laptop off, and stop that podcast, and pick a pen and a paper and go inwards, spend some time alone, and then the signal will come towards you, the higher calling, that thing that drives you, that thing that emotionally charges you, even though you went through so much. That matters. And I think it really also matters that you actually put this on paper. You know, there's big studies also about students and people who say, successful people who actually you know, record their accomplishments, and those who actually journal are extremely successful people, because you're not just using your logical mind. It goes from there through your heart into the pen and paper. So these are things. I mean, I don't consider myself a successful person. You know, I was born in a developing country, in Laos, to 4 children. My parents had, I was the last. I was born in Laos, and you know, we immigrated to a developed country, to Germany, because again, my parents didn't ask me; they just took me, and there was not enough food. There was very little, so my mother bent over. She gave me bottled water. I got really sick. This typical diarrhea for developing countries, right? I almost didn't make it. But somehow I recovered, and I'm still here. So grew up in a Western country, and had this privilege with this education, lived in many countries, but always was very, I was actually, whatever I did the first time, it never worked. You know, I failed school because I wouldn't understand why people would sit in the classroom and repeat the same thing as the teacher says. I was always the one rocking in the back, rocking my chair, and I was looking out the window and think that there must be something better out there. And indeed it was. And so, yeah, any job I did, I got fired, like literally asking too many questions. And then I thought, okay, this is now the opportunity to set up your own company, you know. And then at some point I started to get bored with my own company and started, okay, there must be something better out there, because that industry that I'm in, and you know, I was in, is the health industry. So I started studying functional medicine and naturopathy, anything to do with self-development and healing, health, fitness, you name it, self-development with Tony Robbins and all of these gurus, you know, Peter Diamandis and all of that. Then I thought there must be something better. I mastered that area, and I thought, okay, how could we now take care of the health of the planet? So that's the only reason how I then ended up in space with a zero space background. But that didn't stop me from asking questions, you know. I never watched science fiction. I never, you know, read science fiction. These are books, or Star Wars I even never watched, you know. So this was a naturally occurring, this space and STEM thing, because I think there's going to be a lot of problems if women are not going to be on the table. That's why it's very important for now, for each individual. That doesn't really matter what gender you are. By now, if you don't know who you are, the algorithm probably will tell you, you know, these tech giants, these sensors and surveillance, they know everything about us. So it's a good investment to spend time on your own, know who you are. That's the greatest value. Else AI will tell us, you know, they will tell us who we are, and I hope we don't become followers or victims of this externals, you know. It's easier to grant, you know, our sovereignty to a system or algorithm. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who joined this session. And we're out of time, but we have 5 minutes left. I want to leave this question to Zainab, and we're going to finish this session. Thanks to everyone. Yes, please, Zainab.
I'll just be really quick. Well, I know that I'm only 18, so I still have a whole life ahead of me to fail and to, you know, learn and have those moments. But I think it's really important, as Hien said, is to share those stories also of the journey, you know, not just the destination. And I, you know, even though I'm only 18 and I'm in university, I've been rejected multiple times for a lot of things. So you might see, oh, you know, future astronaut and, you know, give and all those things and mentor. But I was a totally different person 5 years ago than I am right now, because before I was so afraid to ask for anything, to push for anything. I was just like, no one wants to hear me speak. Nobody wants to listen to me, and I don't have any room in this space. And I'm fortunate enough, and I'm very grateful that I have support systems like my parents, which I know not everybody has, because when I didn't believe in myself, they still believed in me. And I feel like success for me is not a positionality, is not a title, but it's about living a meaningful, fulfilled life in which you are, you know, doing something in service to other people. And I feel like I'm doing that on a smaller scale right now, but, you know, and so my goal in life would be to expand that. But I feel like I am doing what I'm meant to be doing and what I want to be doing, you know, and I feel like roles and titles and positions are just a means to doing that. They're not the end goal. They're a means to providing service. They're a means to, you know, having, you know, expanding your purpose and helping others. And so, you know, even though I am young, what I would say is to anyone who's here, it doesn't matter if you're old, young, you know, race, religion, but I would say, firstly, ask for help, you know, and if you don't have parents or support systems at home, reach out to mentors, you know, go to the Space for Women network thing on UNOOSA on their website, find a mentor, you fill up a form and you'll get a mentor, and they can help you navigate whatever it is you want to navigate. And as Janet said, you know, even if the answer is no, you know, that doesn't say anything about you. And I actually say no means next opportunity, right? It just means next opportunity. So
very nice.
Exactly. Yeah, and then, you know, look at the good. I know that we've been talking about the issues, and certainly the barriers are there, but we have so much access to information, and we need to expand that access to information to, you know, everyone in developing areas for sure. But what I've learned is not from school, and I can tell you that, which is why I want to change it. I've learned that from my own independent research, from learning from women who were like the women here, from listening to them. So you take advantage of that. Go on the internet, listen to these speeches, take a course if you need to, do what you need to do, but you need to take initiative of your life and of your learning. And then, you know, I would say, don't be afraid to challenge and to disrupt things. There's that quote of, well-behaved women seldom make history. Don't be, don't think about, is this nice? Or, I have a big problem with people pleasing. Oprah says, like I have a disease to please, and I'm working on that. So I'm not even, I shouldn't be preaching this, but I'm just saying, don't be afraid to challenge, to disrupt, and make people uncomfortable, right? Because that's how things change, and that's how change happens. And then lastly, I would say, this is not about it being easy. I think it's easier now for women than it was, even 10 years ago to go into STEM and to do these things, for sure. But it's still not going to be easy. And there was, I know I love my studies, but there was this experiment that happened where boys and girls were doing this lab experiment, and it was purposely designed to fail, but the students didn't know that. So inevitably they all failed. The boys said, oh, this experiment is stupid. The girls said, I'm stupid. So you don't take failure personally, just learn from it, grow from it, take risks, right? And as Sian was mentioning, we have this need often as women to put 110%, and sometimes women of color 120%, but you have to, as long as you recognize your ability and you are curious, you wonder, you have questions, and you have purpose and meaning, and you're coming from a deeper place than just position or title, and it's like, this is my mission in life, this is my calling, then nothing can stop you, and you have to be willing to take risks. And there's no such thing, I don't think, like they said, as failure. It's you learn from it and you grow from it, and if you learn from it and you grow from it, then you haven't failed, you've just become better. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. And dear strong ladies, we're very appreciate to have you in this session. And I will have, I think we will have a lot of next opportunities in front of us. And thank you very much. Have a nice day, have a nice night.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Nice meeting the
everyone.
people who I didn't know before, and Janet, always great to see you. So have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye.